Okay, we're recording. That's good. Hi, this is Mark Molyneux, class of 1970. I'm at the home of Captain Ray Miller, who has experience at Wentworth in the 60s. And today is Friday, February 16th. So here we go. Here's Captain Miller.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you. You're looking good.
Well, thank you. I'm feeling pretty good.
Good. Well, tell me about your early life. You know, where you're born, where you're raised.
Well, I'm presently in Morris, Illinois, which was my hometown, and I am back for 4 generations in Morris, and I've ended up being the business manager of the Morris High School. So I'm right home, and when I always wanted to be a school teacher, so I attended school here in Morris, and I attended college in northern Minnesota, and ended up being a teacher and school administrator.
Okay. Now, how did you get to Wentworth? How did that happen?
Well, I was teaching in Sterling, Illinois, and I had 8 classes of beginning typing, and I felt like I was being tick happy, so I decided that I wanted to do something entirely different. So I wrote a letter to Wentworth asking if they had any openings for business teachers. And I found out from my colleague of mine who was at Wentworth. So I got a letter back from Colonel Wyckoff, the superintendent, saying that no, they didn't have any business openings. And a few days later, I got a call from the colonel saying, "What is a business teacher?" And I said, "Well, you know, it's teach typing and bookkeeping and shorthand and all that." And he said, "Well, we do have an opening, but I thought that was called commercial." And I said, "Well, 50 years ago it would have been." So anyway, in fact, you probably remember Ma Gibbons, who was a typing teacher.
Sure.
And so she was the other commercial teacher.
Okay.
And so I came to Wentworth by a colleague telling me that it was a good school and I want something different. And I found something different.
Yeah,
Really
yeah, military school.
Yeah,
and you didn't have much of a military background, is that true?
I absolutely had nothing other than admiration for the military. And I was strictly a school teacher, civilian. And I came to Wentworth because they found out that I was a Boy Scout leader, and they needed help in the summer camp. And so I came there, and I was put in a room above the administration building, and it had a bed, a chair, no air conditioning, and we were in the month of June, and it was really hot. But anyway, Colonel Stagner had a son, David. David was probably 14 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
And he came and introduced himself, and he said, "I'll help you prepare for being an instructor here."
Just
And
to
I
help you
said,
with the military
"Yeah."
aspect of it.
And David was, you know, his whole life was at Wentworth. So I said, "That's great." And he said, "What's your first question?" And I said, "Do you salute with your right or left hand?" And the guy said, "You need help, Captain." So we started, and he showed me how to put brass on, how to shine my shoes,
Good.
and the military requirements.
Kind of
And
a basic training.
Yeah, I had basic training, and I had 2 days to do it.
2 days.
And I've always been thankful for David because without him, I'm sure I would have had
Oh, you've been fine.
very unusual start. So,
So you mentioned summer camp.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the world famous Weewo Millax?
Yeah.
What's that about?
that's a combination of Wentworth Military Academy, sounding like an Indian name. And because I had a background in Boy Scouts, they asked if I'd think of these. So I came in the summer, and I was not used to Missouri summers because I was in my dad and mother's summer home in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And Missouri was quite a change for it.
A little humidity and
Yeah.
yeah.
So I became a faculty officer working in the camp, and I was in the craft, making Indian things because of my background.
So it was all based on Indian folklore,
Indian lore.
Indian lore. And you, that was a hobby of yours?
Well, I have collected Indian things since I was 6 years old, and our summer home was in an area where there were 5 reservations.
Okay.
So I purchased items from the Indians, and it was a good fit for me because I like Indian lore and I liked making things.
Yes.
And so I enjoyed it. And so I was there for summer. Then I went back to summer home and came back for my first experience at Wentworth.
The school
And
year.
I had a one-room apartment at E&F Barracks.
E&F down the hill.
And it was real exciting. But throughout the career, I went from instructor in the summer camp to assistant camp director to camp director.
Okay.
So I went through the whole thing.
You went up the
and I was
chain.
fortunate because Colonel Stagner was the originator of the camp.
Okay.
He invented the name for our Indian tribe.
Okay.
And he was a very nice man, and he helped me a great deal.
Okay.
And David was his right-hand man during
His
the
son,
camp.
yeah.
So I had a good start.
Well,
and
good.
I enjoyed it.
So once the normal school year started, you were an instructor. What subjects did you
I
teach?
taught general business, bookkeeping, and I think economics. And I enjoyed it because in the public school I had sometimes between 40 and 80 kids, and you only knew them when they were in your class. But at Wentworth, I lived in a dorm. I saw them in church. I was one of those people that counted them in and out of church.
So 7 days a week you were around.
And I went to parades. I ate with them. And I think the absolutely best part of Wentworth for me was knowing the kids. And they came from such interesting backgrounds.
Yes.
And I just found it to be a total delight from
Now,
beginning.
now when did you actually start Wentworth? What year was
I
that?
think it was 62, but I was there 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went from instructor to director of development.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. You were an instructor, but in addition, you were on the staff in public affairs and marketing, and that.
About a year after I was there, the public information officer passed away, and so I was appointed to that.
Was that John Pahala?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And
It's okay.
that's my dog Elizabeth, so she'll probably interrupt.
Here, well, we better. Here, we'll get Elizabeth.
Come on, baby.
It's okay.
I'm
the
sorry.
fun. That's the fun part of the interviews.
You never know when Liz is basically in charge. So,
So
But
should we put Elizabeth outside for a minute? Is that-
yeah, could you put Elizabeth outside for us?
Thank you. Okay, so you were on the staff, public affairs. You
Yes.
took over for John Prahala, who had
Yes.
passed away.
Yes. And at that time, I was teaching full time, so I insisted on having one class. So I kept one business class plus public
Okay.
relations.
Okay.
And then I also spent a lot of time showing cadets, prosper cadets through the academy, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And
So you were there for the field house, the $1.5 million field
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Tell me about that dedication.
okay, we it was kind of an interesting affair. I was director of development at that time, and we built this $1.5 million field house, which was a great improvement. And we had this big dedication, and we invited Mayor Bartle, dedicated the
Now, he was the mayor of Kansas City,
Yes.
H. Bartle.
great big personality and a big person.
Yes.
And he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
And so he came there, and we also invited President Truman to be at the visitation, or dedication.
Yeah.
And so it was really funny because I shouldn't laugh at such a wonderful opportunity. But Colonel Wyckoff came to me and he said, I want to make sure the calls to colors of the bugler is really good and strong
Yes,
that
sure.
day. And I said, that's fine. Well, it wasn't camera interrupted.
Yes.
Come on, Liz.
Yeah, that's okay. I know you want to be on film too, but well, we'll keep going on here
Okay.
as long as just don't bark anymore.
That's it.
Okay. Well, we were talking about the field house dedication.
Yes, and Colonel Wyckoff wanted the call the colors to be. So I practiced with the bugler for several nights before, and it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
And he also said, when the howitzer goes off just before the national anthem,
Right.
I want that large. I want that loud. And if you remember Colonel Wyckoff, he was very definite. He wanted it done right. And so I went to the military department, talked to the colonel about the howitzer. He said, don't worry, Captain, we'll take care of it. So I noticed at the dedication where they introduced the dignitaries and the cadets marched in, and it was really very nice and sharp. And so I said to a friend of mine, I said, look at they're moving the howitzer. Instead of beside the back door of the field house, they stuck the barrel into the field house. And so when they played Call the Colors and the cannon went off, it filled most of the auditorium or the field house with smoke and broke several windows. And I was very thankful that it didn't knock the whole thing down. So the next day, Colonel Wyckoff calls me in his office and he said, by God, Miller, when I ask for a big boom, you give it to me. And I still chuckle about that because everybody else was quite scared, but he was exactly what he wanted. And so the performance went on with no problem. The cadets were superb, was
I
good.
think I was in that, during the dedication course, the Corps was there.
Yeah.
That's where I lost my hearing.
Yeah,
Was
could be, because
because
it
of
was
the-
loud enough. But I got a kick out of the colonel told the major told the, and they got down to the side, and they all kept moving it closer and closer, and I kept getting worried and worried, but it all worked out
Well, it
okay.
sounds like you really enjoyed your 5 years there.
Yeah, I had 5 years of the best experience, and I think underscore the cadets to me was the highlight of it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed every bit of that, and I always think back fondly of all the times and
Yeah.
interests that we had, but I really liked Sunday parades. I like watching the cadets form up. It just was unbelievable. I think I told you one time they were forming up to go into the mess hall, and I was standing with your dad, Colonel Melano, and a man came up to us and said, "Where's A Company?" And Colonel Melano looked at him and he said, those cadets with all the white hair on, that's A Company. And he was kidding me because my dog, Alpha, who lived with me in the dorm, all the boys would bring him and play with him, and they end up with all white hair. And the commandant was not happy about that. But anyway, I said, well, Colonel, you just have to get used to it.
Yeah.
and he just got kicked. But
Okay.
I do have to reminisce a little bit of you. I really enjoyed your dad and your mother who worked in the
You're very kind.
infirmary.
Very
And
kind. Thank you.
they were special people, and
Thank you.
I really enjoyed them.
When I think back of my days at school, I was there 7 years.
Yeah,
If I had to pick one word, it would be family.
yeah,
And that's what it felt like. All the instructors were, and the teachers, the staff,
yeah,
and of course all the cadets. We were truly a family back then.
sure.
I don't know if, of course, after I left, I assume it stayed a family. With other.
I hope so.
Yeah, I
That's
do
the
too.
important thing. And I think we felt fondly of the cadets, and I think most of the cadets enjoyed their staff people. And another thing, I don't know if you remember, but the custodians and stuff were all good friends. The night watchman,
Yeah.
all those people. Remember the man who was kind of bald-headed, and he was a custodian, and he would, every time you'd see him, he'd stick his thumb up.
Thumbs up, Curly was his name. Curly,
and he'd say, "Go get him, buddy," And when I showed people around the academy, I always hope he was there, because I always introduced him and said, "Now here's the best friend of the cadet."
Yes.
He loved every one of those kids, and I think they liked him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he was
Yeah.
he was popular. Captain Miller, I'm worried we're going to run out of memory here on this, and I want to make sure we get in what you did. What after you left Wentworth? What kind of Big Sky?
I number one went back to get my master's in northern Minnesota, Bemidji State, and by the way, several cadets attended Bemidji State, which I didn't mind one bit.
Yes.
And then I went back into teaching, and after 1 year, I became the business manager at Sterling Township High School.
That's here in Illinois?
In Illinois.
Okay.
And then I went from there to Morris High School, my home high school.
Oh, your hometown.
And where my family's been for years. and I was a business manager here for 20 years.
Okay.
And by the way, I used the same principle I did with Wentworth. I taught one class because I thought administrators should teach and know what the kids are like. And after that, and by the way, I started with yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am. And the kids at first thought I was really weird. And then after that, they start saying to me, yes sir, and no sir.
So
and
you were teaching them how to be respectful.
Well, it caught on. So I used the Wentworth principles. And after 20 years, I retired, stayed in Morris, went to my summer home. Then I got a call from my neighboring school, Wanuka High School, and they wanted me to come for 5 days to pick up business manager for them.
Okay.
So I said, fine. And I was over there about 2 years, and I kept saying, I keep bringing all these good people, but you don't pick any of them. They said, well, we kind of like who we have. So I stayed there 5 years after retirement. Since then, I've came back to my home, and I started collecting again Indian objects and keep myself busy. So.
Okay. Well, that's... when I put this on my YouTube channel, everybody's going to have access to that. And I'm sure there are some people, old cadets, old staff maybe, that will want to contact you.
Right.
So I don't want to put your phone number or your email on where the public can see it.
Okay.
So if somebody, those of you who are listening, watching, if you'll contact me, I can give you Captain Miller's contact information. Okay, I just want to make sure we got that in before we run out. So let's go back to the Wentworth. Some of the people, Mrs. Hepler, Colonel Ungles, Mrs. Prodell. Tell me a little bit about some of those people.
I really said I've always enjoyed the cadets, but I enjoyed the faculty. Colonel Wyckoff was, to me, a very, very outstanding person. And it seemed a little gruff, but underneath it was a person that was really concerned. And what I liked most is that you put cadets first, no matter what. Now, they maybe didn't feel that way, but I know that if it was good for the cadets, it was good for Wentworth. And I liked that. And then Colonel Sellers, who he taught Latin and the public relations images thing. He was always nice to me, and I enjoyed knowing him. And Colonel Ungles was very businesslike, but always kept things rolling. And Captain Osborne was outstanding in the bookkeeping department. And Colonel Stagner was the camp director and executive officer, and he taught me a lot about all the different experiences. And two of my best friends was Colonel Thomas, the dean. And also Dr. Campbell. And I'll have to tell you a story that I always was good. One time we were standing there with Dr. Campbell, and a company went by, and they were marching, and they started cadence, and said left, right, Jesus loves us with sweet. No, Dr. Campbell tells us so. And Dr. Campbell said, I don't know if that's such good. I said, when young kids, young boys want to say Jesus loves us, you ought to take that as a compliment. And he said, well, I do. And we really had a really good staff and had a lot of good teachers. But I think the strong point, we had small classes, individual point, and I didn't look at a kid like 1 hour a day. I had them 7 days a week.
Yeah.
It's just like parade. I love parades. So I would go there. And I soon found out that most of the civilians there had no idea when they should stand or when they should clap. So I took it upon myself that whenever we should clap, I stood up and clapped. Everybody stood up and clapped. And this went on for about 5 years.
Really?
But I think I gave order to the people watching because they didn't know what to do.
You're kind of the bandmaster, the ringleader
Yeah, it was.
in the circus.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. And I think when I had to go someplace, I think they kind of missed me because I didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I got to get them in proper cadence.
Yes. So we're about 27 and a half minutes. So it may just cut off any time, but we can just keep talking until it shuts off here. So if you're going to give a message to the old boys that are watching this right now, what are you going to tell them?
Well, number one, I thank them for being so nice to me. And secondly, enjoy every minute you have. I'm 87, and I intend to keep going as long as I can.
Yes.
And I think they should. And whenever they think fondly of Wentworth, try to keep the old boy system going.
Yeah, family.
Work hard to have people never forget Wentworth.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see this on the video, but sitting here with Captain Miller, he's got tears coming out of his eyes.
I shouldn't.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure visiting with you and sharing your stories. And I would encourage everybody, he's got 1 million stories, and get a hold of me and I'll give you his contact information. And I appreciate you having me in your house.
Yeah.
It's very, very courteous. Those of you who will remember Captain Miller back in the days, he's still a man of integrity, just a super nice person.
Yeah.
And that's how I always remember you.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Okay, well, we're going to close this down because we're right at 30 minutes here. Anyway, thanks for having me in your home. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and I remember your folks fondly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bye now.
We're going to shut it down here.